Let's go to Joe in Arkansas. Joe, you wanted to talk about the Ferguson shooting. Go ahead.
Yes, okay. I distinctly remember around the beginning of the year, I was listening to a radio station in San Antonio, Texas, WOAI, and I heard a news reporter say, a news announcer, he said, there's a new civil war in America. It's the people against the police. So I think there's no doubt that it's on the agenda of the establishment, of the White House. They want a civil war between the people and the police, and they kind of kept it quiet, kept it kind of low-key during the winter when everybody was busy trying to survive the cold, and now there's getting warmer, and people are, able to go out in the streets more. I think they're trying to ramp it up and get it going again.
I would agree with you. I think you would too, wouldn't you, Paul?
Yeah, this is the point that I've made over and over again. The elite know that unrest is coming. About 6 months ago, the CFR came out with an article called The American Distemper. We've had Brzezinski saying for years there's this huge uprising coming. We've got the elite, the wealthy, buying property in remote locations in New Zealand because they're afraid of civil unrest and Ferguson-style riots. So they know all that's coming, which is why they're trying to get ahead of it with these Soros groups and hijack it and steer it, which is why Obama labeled these grievances against the Wilson case, quote, legitimate and understandable, even after the grand jury case had found the claims of the Black Lives Matter protesters to be based on completely fraudulent foundations. So they're aware that this general uprising is coming. Trust in government is at record lows, all the polls show. So they need to hijack that, steer and divert it, and that's part of what we see going on in Ferguson.
Absolutely, and as you pointed out, you were the ones that want to discover the massive stockpiling of ammunition. Hollow point bullets, not for target practice. Hollow point bullets they're very expensive. You don't use those for target practice. You don't use them in the military. They've been banned by the Geneva Convention. You only use those against your own citizens. And of course, also the MRAP program that is pre-positioning military equipment throughout the police departments across the country. Let's go to Charles in Texas. Charles.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say thank you for everything that all of you guys do, and as well as everybody, as well as all the listeners.
Well, thank you for listening.
I just wanted to make a couple of points about Ferguson. It's obvious to me that it's just falling under the same divide and conquer kind of plan, especially when you look at it from the standpoint, like from the AR-15 rounds recently trying to get banned, and as well as the overall fight that they're trying to do the gun control by taking our ammunition away. I think that they are just falling completely under the whole divide and conquer construct, if you want to put it that way, as well as, and if it's not a false flag, I truly believe that the citizens or the protesters are just falling right into the hands of the globalists.
Yes, either it's a false flag, or maybe as Paul said, they don't need it after months and months of this narrative. Thank you, Charles. Let's go to Brandon in Georgia. Brandon, you also want to talk about the ammo ban that we've just seen try to be imposed. Go ahead.
Hey, David. I wanted to get your opinion on the ammo being pushed back, and if it's just a trial run to sort of put people in a panic like after Aurora and Sandy Hook. And I also wanted to ask you, do you think that this shooting in Ferguson is just a false flag, or if it's just an attempt for the Soros groups to get people all rounded up to cause even more mayhem than we saw after the grand jury decision on Michael Brown?
Well, as far as the ammo ban goes, we have an article up on Infowars.com today. The real reason the ATF is backing down from green tip ammo ban. And, of course, he points out that the most effective way to encroach on our rights is to go big. And so he believes that, as we've seen, and we've seen this strategy before, he believes that they're going to come in with some onerous, outrageous legislation that's going to inspire outrage, and then do that in a way that they can offer a compromise. But, of course, that compromise is going to come with further encroachments and infringements on the Second Amendment. And we've seen that strategy work successfully in the United States time and time again. In the early days of the NSA, decades ago, they were partners with the government with that. They were more than willing to compromise our rights. You can never compromise your fundamental rights. They are not negotiable. And we need to understand that. I believe the current leadership of the NRA understands that as well. Certainly organizations like Gun Owners of America understands that, but I think the NRA understands that now. And of course, Paul, what he was talking about in terms of the racial divide and conquer, that's what you've been talking about this whole segment, what we've been talking about since this happened in Ferguson. It was very clear they were picking ambiguous cases, perhaps cases where the police were justified, and using that to shut down a pushback against police brutality. That's precisely what they've done here in Ferguson. Even the Justice Department didn't find anything wrong with the Michael Brown shooting. They came after these guys and shut them down because they were illegally using the police department and the court system for revenue collection.
Well, David, I mean, compare the media's reaction to the Black Lives Matter protesters, you know, upholding and venerating them, Time magazine in defense of rioting, to the media's reaction to the Bundy Ranch protesters.
Yes.
Completely vilified them for months. So that shows you right there where their interest lies. On the ammo, one of the first things that Obama said, and this leaked in the Washington Post when he got into office, is that he would try and attack the Second Amendment, quote, under the radar. So he's going to be very sneaky about it. If you read the ATF's actual statement, you know, falling back on this bullet ban, they didn't say they would relinquish it altogether. They said for now they'll leave it, and they're just going to come back and try it again.
Absolutely, we know they will.
Different kind of regulatory framework. So it's not done by any stretch of the imagination.
But we have had a victory, and we do need to celebrate that victory. And we need to take from that the fact that if we stand up to them, there was 80,000 people left to comment at the ATF. They had 200 congressmen write them. They had over 50 senators write them. The bottom line is there was massive opposition to it. They shut down the comment period 5 days early and said, we're going to go back and take a look at this. And of course, they are going to come back. And when they talk about doing this under the radar, Paul, they're going to come after the ammunition. They've tried for decades to take away our guns by banning individual guns. And what happens is one of two things is going to happen. People will go in and make minor modifications to the guns so that they're no longer illegal, or they'll have to go door to door to confiscate these guns. Now they've gotten smarter. They're going after the ammunition. That's the way they're going to do gun control, because it's not, the Second Amendment is not about guns. It's not about any particular gun. It's not about muzzle loaders. It's about the right to keep and bear arms. That means guns, pistols, rifles. That means the bullets that you shoot out of them. That means swords and knives if necessary. It's a way to protect yourself, a right of self-defense that we get from God that's recognized in the Constitution. Let's go to Mike in Ferguson. Mike in Michigan about Ferguson. Go ahead, Mike.
Hello, David.
Hey.
Yeah, I just have one comment about this. It strikes me kind of funny that they had the shooting down there last night in Ferguson. And then, I mean, the ATF has shelved this about this. I was just kind of wondering what kind of ammo they're using.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, they're trying to push this ammunition ban, saying these are cop killers. Now we have a couple of cops get killed. I haven't heard anything about that. Have you heard anything about that, Paul? I don't think they've had that kind of specificity yet.
There's no information on the bullets used. The fact that they were injured and not killed probably suggests that it wasn't armor piercing or anything, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't even know with certainty, because there's been conflicting reports whether the shots came from the crowd or whether they came from a distance over a hill. Thank you, Mike. Let's go to Nick in Missouri. Nick, are you close to Ferguson?
Yeah, I'm
Hello, Nick. Okay, let's go to Christina in Colorado. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, until we get our president, first of all, straightened out with all of his so-called rules, we're not going to get America to back everything that needs to be backed up. Our country is going to hell because we have a lousy president, and plus, he's trying to stop us from doing anything, and that is a no-no as far as American people are concerned. We have rights from God Almighty. I'm sick of this president and all of his actions of doing what he wants to do. You know, our government, our right says when a government no longer rules as they should, it's time to get the hell out of it.
Well, absolutely. That's what the Declaration of Independence says. It says that we create governments to protect our rights, and when those governments destroy our rights, we have the right and the duty to alter or abolish that government. I think it was interesting that when the FBI came against Barrett Brown, as we interviewed him last week, One of the things they did was they confiscated his Declaration of Independence, and they said, you've got that. That shows that you're a radical. Well, what they did was they eventually gave that back to him. They wanted to keep that as part of the plea bargaining, and the judge says, no, I think you should give him back his Declaration of Independence. He said he didn't want to report it because most of his liberal friends in Huffington Post and Slate that follow him wouldn't believe that the government would do that. Of course, he understood that they would. But they eventually gave that back to him. But you know what? They kept his rights. And when you're talking about Obama,